On September 7, 1991, the Patterson family, consisting of parents Robert and Susan Patterson, along with their 4 children, Jennifer, age 16, Michael, age 14, Sarah, age 12, and David, age 9, vanished without a trace during a cross-country road trip from Seattle, Washington to Yellowstone National Park, becoming one of the most baffling missing family cases in Pacific Northwest history. The family had departed their suburban Seattle home at 5:30 a.m. that crisp autumn morning, driving their silver 1989 Chevrolet Suburban fully loaded with camping gear, cameras to capture the spectacular wilderness scenery, and the excitement of 4 children who had never seen the geysers and wildlife of America's first national park. Robert, a 44-year-old aerospace engineer known for his meticulous trip planning, had carefully mapped their route using physical road atlases and had informed relatives they should expect to reach their reserved campsite at Grant Village by evening, after a scenic drive through some of the most beautiful terrain in the American West. Where are you reading from? Share your city and country in the comments before we continue this story. The planned route was straightforward and well-traveled. Interstate 90 east through Washington and into Montana, then south on various state highways toward Yellowstone's west entrance, a journey of approximately 8 hours that the family had mentally rehearsed for weeks, studying park guides and planning the activities they would enjoy during their week-long camping adventure. Susan, a 41-year-old high school teacher, had meticulously packed first aid kits, medications, and enough food and water for several days, while the 4 children had prepared disposable cameras and travel journals to document what they hoped would be an unforgettable family adventure in America's wilderness. When the family failed to check into their reserved campsite and didn't respond to worried phone calls from relatives, a massive search was activated involving multiple law enforcement agencies, specialized rescue teams, and civilian volunteers. But despite weeks of intensive searching along their planned route and surrounding areas, no trace of the vehicle or any of the 6 family members was found. 14 years later, in 2005, high-resolution satellite imagery would reveal a chilling discovery that would finally provide answers about the fate of the Patterson family, but would also raise disturbing questions about unexplained forces operating in the vast and mysterious wilderness areas of the American Rocky Mountains. The initial investigation, led by Washington State Patrol Detective Lieutenant James Morrison, became one of the most extensive search and rescue operations in Pacific Northwest history, mobilizing resources from multiple states and federal agencies in a coordinated effort to locate the Patterson family. The search began when Robert's brother, Kenneth Patterson, contacted authorities on September 9th after the family had failed to check into their Yellowstone reservation and all attempts at phone contact had failed, which was completely out of character for Robert, who was known for his punctuality and regular communication with extended family. Search teams deployed helicopters equipped with thermal imaging technology to cover the vast Interstate 90 corridor and surrounding roads, while ground units meticulously traveled every mile of the planned route, inspecting rest areas, gas stations, and secondary roads where the vehicle might have detoured or experienced mechanical problems. The search revealed the challenging immensity of the Pacific Northwest landscape, with thousands of square miles of rugged mountainous terrain, deep gorges, and dense forest that could easily conceal a crashed vehicle from aerial view, especially if it had fallen into one of the many ravines or washes that carved the landscape like invisible scars. Investigators interviewed dozens of potential witnesses, including gas station attendants along the route, other travelers who had been in the area during the September 7th weekend, and park rangers at various stops who might have seen the family. But no confirmed testimony placed the Pattersons beyond Seattle after their early morning departure. Analysis of the family's phone and financial records revealed no activity after September 7th, with their cell phones apparently shutting off or losing signal at some point during the first hours of their journey, and no credit card transactions or ATM withdrawals that could indicate their whereabouts. The search expanded to include the possibility of kidnapping or criminal activity, with the FBI becoming involved to investigate whether the family might have been targeted by criminals operating along major tourist routes. But Robert and Susan's backgrounds revealed no enemies, significant debts, or connections to illegal activities that could motivate such an act. The silver Chevrolet Suburban was added to national databases of stolen and missing vehicles, with alerts distributed to police stations, traffic centers, and automotive service centers throughout the western United States. But despite the wide circulation, the vehicle was never spotted or reported by citizens. As weeks turned into months without progress, the investigation began to consider the possibility that the family had encountered some type of catastrophic natural disaster that had eliminated all evidence of their presence. But even this theory couldn't fully explain how 6 people and a large vehicle could disappear so completely on well-traveled tourist routes. The case attracted significant media attention, with networks like CNN and NBC providing extensive coverage that generated thousands of tips from viewers across the country. But none of the leads produced breakthrough information that could explain how an entire family could simply vanish from some of the most monitored and traveled highways in America. The 14 years that followed the Patterson family's disappearance were marked by the unwavering determination of extended family members to keep the case in public consciousness, while fighting against the natural tendency of authorities and media to move on to more recent and potentially solvable cases. Kenneth Patterson became the primary family spokesperson, organizing annual civilian searches every September 7th that attracted hundreds of volunteers from across the Pacific Northwest and neighboring states, who combed remote wilderness areas that might have been overlooked during the original official searches. Susan's parents, Harold and Margaret Wilson, used their retirement savings to hire private investigators and search and rescue experts, including specialists who used emerging technologies like GPS-equipped drones and metal detection sensors to explore areas inaccessible to traditional search teams. Robert's sister, Patricia Patterson Davis, established a dedicated website that was regularly updated with new information, family photographs, and public appeals for help, generating hundreds of potential leads from people who believed they had seen the vehicle or family members in various states, though none of these tips resulted in concrete progress. During these years, the family received support from national missing persons organizations that provided resources, expertise, and emotional support, while television programs like Unsolved Mysteries and America's Most Wanted featured the case multiple times, keeping the story in national attention and generating new tip activity each time the episode aired. The 4 Patterson children would have reached adulthood during these years of waiting. Jennifer would have turned 30 in 2005, Michael 28, Sarah 26, and David 23, and the extended family maintained hope that if they had survived whatever situation caused their initial disappearance, they might eventually find ways to make contact or return home. The official investigation remained technically active, but with limited resources, with Detective Morrison periodically reviewing the case for new evidence or technologies that might provide fresh leads, but without significant developments to justify renewing expensive and extensive searches. Theories and speculation abounded in internet forums and mystery enthusiast groups, with some people suggesting extraterrestrial activity, paranormal phenomena, or dimensional portals, while more conventional explanations focused on catastrophic accidents, undetected criminal activity, or the possibility that the family had deliberately assumed new identities for unknown reasons. As satellite mapping technology became more advanced and widely available through services like Google Earth, some family members and dedicated volunteers began using these tools to systematically examine the wilderness landscape, hoping that a high-resolution aerial perspective might reveal evidence that had eluded traditional ground and air searches. The emotional toll on the extended family was immense, with several relatives requiring counseling and therapy to cope with the uncertainty and the gradual transition from hope for rescue to acceptance that their loved ones were likely deceased, though the lack of bodies or wreckage made complete closure impossible. On March 18, 2005, an extraordinary discovery completely changed the Patterson family investigation when Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a forest ecology researcher from the University of Washington who was using high-resolution satellite imagery to study old-growth forest patterns for her doctoral dissertation, noticed something unusual in satellite images of a remote area approximately 120 miles northeast of the family's planned route. Dr. Rodriguez, who had been following the Patterson case for years and knew that many volunteers used satellite technology to search for clues, initially thought she had found simply another rocky outcrop or natural geological formation. But closer examination revealed what appeared to be the distinctive rectangular shape of a large vehicle partially buried in snow and debris at the bottom of a steep ravine that would have been completely invisible from roads or normal flight paths. The coordinates of the mysterious object placed it in an extremely remote region of the Cascade Mountains that was rarely visited even by experienced hikers or mountaineers, an area characterized by treacherous terrain, seasonal avalanches, and rock formations that created a natural maze where someone could easily become lost without proper navigation equipment. Dr. Rodriguez immediately contacted both authorities and the Patterson family, sharing the exact coordinates and high-resolution screenshots that showed the anomalous object measuring approximately the right size to be a large SUV and positioned in a way that suggested it had fallen into the ravine during a mountain weather event. The area where the object was discovered was more than 50 miles from any paved road and required specialized 4WD vehicles and GPS navigation to access, explaining why it had remained undiscovered for more than 14 years, despite the extensive searches that had focused on more accessible and probable routes. Detective Morrison immediately coordinated with specialized mountain search and rescue teams and county personnel to organize an expedition to the identified coordinates, using all-terrain vehicles and excavation equipment to access the remote site and determine whether the object seen in satellite images was indeed the missing Chevrolet Suburban belonging to the Patterson family. The logistics of reaching the site required careful planning due to extreme mountain conditions, lack of roads, and potential for avalanches that could make the area inaccessible or dangerous for rescue teams. But the possibility of finally finding answers after 14 years of searching made the risks acceptable to all involved. Weather conditions would need to be monitored carefully, as the elevation and remote location meant that rescue teams could easily become stranded themselves if conditions deteriorated, requiring backup plans and emergency provisions that would allow the expedition to be safely conducted and completed. On March 28, 2005, the recovery expedition reached the remote site identified in satellite imagery and confirmed the most significant discovery in the Patterson case. The family's silver Chevrolet Suburban, remarkably intact despite 14 years of mountain weather, containing preserved evidence that would finally reveal the sequence of events that had led to the family's disappearance in 1991. Dr. Angela Mitchell, the lead forensic anthropologist assigned to the site, determined that the vehicle had fallen into the ravine during a massive rock slide that had occurred during the severe storm of September 7 to 8, 1991, a weather event that had been documented by the National Weather Service, but whose localized effects in this remote area had never been fully cataloged. The remains of all 6 family members were found within and around the vehicle, with forensic evidence indicating they had survived the initial rock slide but had become stranded in the remote area without means of communication or escape, eventually succumbing to exposure, hypothermia, and the extreme rigors of the mountain environment over a period of several weeks. Analysis of the vehicle revealed that the family had taken an incorrect exit or followed poorly marked road signs that had led them progressively deeper into the mountains, away from their planned route to Yellowstone, until they found themselves on primitive Forest Service roads that eventually terminated in the ravine where they were trapped by the sudden rock slide. Personal items found in the vehicle included the children's disposable cameras, which when developed revealed heartbreaking photographs of their final family adventure, showing their transition from excitement and fun to growing concern as they realized they were lost in increasingly hostile terrain. Sarah's travel journal, preserved in a waterproof bag, documented the family's desperate attempts to navigate back to civilization, using a compass and map after their cell phones lost signal, as well as their efforts to ration food and water when they realized they might be stranded for an extended period. The journal entries described how Robert had made multiple attempts to hike toward civilization to seek help, while Susan stayed with the children to conserve resources and maintain morale. But the mountain rigors and distances involved had made these efforts futile. Weather analysis confirmed that the rock slide that had trapped the family had been part of an unusually severe storm system that had affected the region during the September 7th weekend. With heavy rains that had destabilized mountain slopes and created deadly landslide conditions that had swept away everything in their path, including the family's vehicle and any hope of immediate escape. The most poignant discovery was Robert's final note, written on the back of a road map, expressing his love for his family and his regret that his decision to take what seemed like a scenic detour had led them into such a dangerous situation, but also his pride in how his wife and children had faced their ordeal with courage and love for each other. The recovery of the Patterson family and subsequent analysis of their final ordeal provided painful but necessary closure to the extended family, while also revealing the hidden tragedies that could befall unprepared travelers in the seemingly peaceful but dangerous wilderness areas of the American West. Forensic analysis determined that Robert and Susan had survived approximately 5 weeks after the initial rock slide, having managed to establish a temporary shelter and ration their limited supplies while maintaining hope for rescue. But the extreme temperatures, lack of adequate water, and inability to signal their location to passing aircraft had finally defeated even their best survival efforts. The 4 children had shown remarkable resilience given their ages, with evidence suggesting their parents had sacrificed their own rations to extend their children's chances of survival. But even these heroic efforts couldn't overcome the implacable realities of the mountain environment and their isolation from any possibility of rescue. The final entries in Sarah's journal, written in increasingly weak handwriting, expressed love for their extended family, gratitude for the life they had shared together, and hopes that someday they would be found so their loved ones could have answers and find peace. Kenneth Patterson and the rest of the extended family expressed mixed emotions upon finally receiving the answers they had sought for 14 years. Devastation at confirming their loved ones' deaths, but also relief at being able to finally honor their memories properly and find some form of closure after more than a decade of torturous uncertainty. The discovery inspired significant changes in search and rescue protocols throughout the Pacific Northwest, with authorities recognizing that traditional searches had been inadequate to cover the vast wilderness expanse, and that new technologies like satellite imagery needed to be systematically incorporated into future search operations. The Patterson family story became a case study used by search and rescue programs to teach about the dangers of traveling in remote wilderness areas without adequate communication equipment, emergency supplies, and knowledge of local conditions that could turn an innocent family trip into a fight for survival. The site where they were found was marked with a memorial that serves as a reminder of the hidden dangers of wilderness travel, and as a tribute to a family that had died together while caring for each other until the end, demonstrating the power of family love even in the face of desperate circumstances. The case also led to improvements in road signage and mapping in remote areas of Washington state, with efforts to prevent future travelers from inadvertently taking detours that could lead them into dangerous terrain without adequate preparation for wilderness conditions. The 4 children's cameras, when developed, contained not only documentation of their final journey, but also images that captured the stunning beauty of the mountain wilderness that had become their final resting place, serving as a reminder of both the majesty and the danger of America's wild places. The aftermath of the Patterson family discovery transformed search and rescue protocols throughout the western United States, establishing new standards for satellite technology integration in search operations, while honoring the memory of 6 people whose tragedy had taught valuable lessons about wilderness survival and travel preparation. The Washington State Patrol implemented the Patterson Protocol, requiring systematic use of high-resolution satellite imagery in all missing person searches involving wilderness terrain, ensuring that future search operations would have access to aerial perspectives that might reveal evidence overlooked by traditional search methods. The extended family established the Patterson Memorial Foundation for Wilderness Safety, which provides free emergency equipment to families planning trips in remote wilderness areas, including satellite GPS devices, emergency radio beacons, and survival kits that could make the difference between life and death in situations similar to what the Patterson family faced. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the forest researcher whose satellite discovery had finally solved the case, completed her doctorate and became a leading researcher in developing remote sensing technologies for search and rescue applications, using her experience with the Patterson case to advance methods that combine ecological analysis with missing person searches. Law enforcement agencies throughout the western states adopted new training procedures that included education about specific wilderness hazards, satellite imagery interpretation, and coordination with weather services to understand how weather events like rock slides might affect search operations and the survival chances of lost persons. The Patterson family story was incorporated into educational programs used by schools, scouting organizations, and outdoor recreation clubs to teach about wilderness travel preparation, emphasizing the importance of informing others about travel plans, carrying emergency communication equipment, and understanding the specific risks of mountain environments that might not be obvious to visitors from other regions. National and state park services implemented improvements in signage and visitor education specifically inspired by the Patterson case, with new information about rockslide dangers, the importance of staying on marked routes, and resources available for travelers who find themselves in difficulty in remote areas. Satellite GPS technology became standard in rental vehicles used for wilderness tourism, with companies implementing tracking systems that could alert authorities if a vehicle deviated significantly from safe routes or stopped in remote areas for extended periods. Universities throughout the country established research programs that used the Patterson case as a starting point for studying the intersection between technology, search and rescue, and human survival in extreme environments, generating new knowledge that benefited multiple fields of study. The case inspired development of new emergency communication technologies specifically designed for wilderness use, including devices that could transmit distress signals even from deep ravines or areas with no cell phone coverage, potentially saving future families from similar fates. A decade after the discovery that had finally solved the Patterson case, the impact of their story continued to influence safety practices and search technology throughout the United States, while their memory served as a powerful reminder of both the beauty and dangers of America's wilderness landscapes. The Patterson Memorial Foundation had grown to become a national organization operating wilderness safety education programs in 20 states, having distributed over 75,000 emergency kits, and provided wilderness survival training to thousands of families planning adventures in remote areas. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had established the Patterson Institute for Search and Rescue Technology at the University of Washington, where researchers continuously developed new methods for using artificial intelligence, machine learning, and satellite image analysis to locate missing persons in challenging terrain more quickly and effectively than ever before. Technological advances inspired by the case had resulted in the development of specialized drones capable of operating in extreme mountain conditions, detection systems that could identify signs of human life from great distances, and algorithms that could analyze terrain patterns to predict the most likely routes lost travelers would take. Kenneth Patterson had become a nationally recognized advocate for wilderness travel safety, consulting with government agencies, tourism organizations, and technology companies to develop better systems for protecting travelers in remote areas while preserving public access to these iconic landscapes. The Patterson Protocol had been adopted by search and rescue agencies in multiple countries facing similar challenges in their own wilderness environments, with Canada, Australia, and several European nations implementing variations of the procedures developed in response to the original case. The story had inspired multiple documentaries, books, and educational programs that reached millions of people, with messages about travel preparation, emergency communication, and respect for the power of nature, ensuring that the lessons learned from the Patterson family tragedy continued to educate and protect others. Ongoing research at the site where they were found had revealed additional insights into rockslide patterns in the region, leading to better prediction and warning systems that could prevent future travelers from being caught by dangerous weather conditions similar to those that had claimed the Patterson family's lives. Advances in satellite communication technology had made it possible for even travelers in the most remote areas to maintain contact with emergency services, with devices that were more affordable and reliable than the options available in 1991, when the family had embarked on their final journey. The memorial established at their discovery site had become a pilgrimage destination for wilderness safety advocates and outdoor enthusiasts, serving as both a tribute to the Patterson family and an educational center where visitors could learn about wilderness preparedness and the importance of respecting the natural forces that shaped America's mountain landscapes. 15 years after their discovery, Robert, Susan, Jennifer, Michael, Sarah, and David Patterson are remembered not only as victims of a wilderness tragedy, but as catalysts for advances in travel safety and search technology that have saved countless lives of families venturing into America's remote landscapes. Their names appear on wilderness safety legislation in multiple states, on technology systems implemented in thousands of recreational vehicles, and in training programs that have educated hundreds of thousands of people about safe navigation and mountain survival. The Patterson Memorial Foundation had evolved into an international organization operating with an annual budget of over $35 million, funding research into search and rescue technologies, providing resources for families affected by travel tragedies, and advocating for government policies that balanced recreational access with public safety. Kenneth Patterson had found purpose in transforming his personal loss into a life mission dedicated to preventing other families from experiencing similar tragedies, receiving national recognition for his work in travel safety and survival education. The Patterson Institute had become a world-leading research center in satellite technology applications for search and rescue, with graduates working in law enforcement agencies, emergency response organizations, and technology companies around the globe. Improvements in road signage, GPS mapping, and emergency alert systems implemented in response to the case had been credited with preventing over 250 potentially fatal situations where travelers might have become lost or trapped in dangerous wilderness conditions. Each year, thousands of families visited the memorial established at the site where they were found, taking with them a deeper appreciation for both the majestic beauty and inherent risks of mountain landscapes, and a renewed commitment to responsible preparation and caution. The case had inspired an entire generation of researchers, technologists, and safety professionals who dedicated their careers to developing increasingly sophisticated systems for protecting people who ventured into remote and potentially dangerous environments. The final photographs taken by the family, developed from their disposable cameras, had become powerful reminders of the importance of communicating travel plans, carrying emergency equipment, and understanding that even the most innocent family adventures could become survival situations if proper precautions weren't taken. Their story continued to be told in educational programs, documentaries, and training materials that reached millions of people annually, ensuring that their memory inspired continued vigilance and improvements in travel safety for all families seeking to experience America's natural wonders. The search and rescue technologies developed in their memory had found applications far beyond wilderness safety, being adapted for disaster response, military operations, and humanitarian missions worldwide, multiplying the positive impact of their legacy across numerous fields of human endeavor. Today, more than 2 decades after the Patterson family embarked on their final journey together toward Yellowstone, their legacy lives in every GPS device that guides a family safely home, every emergency kit that saves lives in the wilderness, and every satellite system that locates lost travelers before it's too late. The advanced technologies inspired by their case have evolved into artificial intelligence systems that can predict movement patterns of lost persons, autonomous drones that can search terrain impossible for human teams, and satellite communication networks that ensure no one is truly beyond the reach of emergency help. The wilderness landscape of the Pacific Northwest, once a potentially deadly maze for unprepared travelers, now operates under some of the most advanced safety protocols in the world. With monitoring systems that can detect vehicles in distress and automatically dispatch assistance, Kenneth Patterson, now in his 80s, continues his work through the foundation, having found that honoring his family's memory through service to others has provided both purpose and healing in the decades since their devastating loss. The Patterson Protocol has been adopted by countries worldwide facing similar challenges in protecting tourists and adventurers in remote environments, creating a global network of protection that would have been unimaginable when Robert first planned their family vacation trip. Their family photographs, taken during happier moments before their departure, are displayed in the memorial as reminders that they were real people with dreams, hopes, and love for each other. Not merely statistical victims, but individuals whose lives had meaning and whose deaths inspired changes that benefited countless others. The story of the Patterson family continues to be told in classrooms, emergency training centers, and public education programs that teach new generations about both the rewards and responsibilities that come with exploring America's vast and beautiful landscapes. The systems that now protect travelers in remote areas are so sophisticated that many visitors never realize the multiple layers of safety operating around them, from satellites tracking their movements to algorithms that can predict when they might need assistance. Each family that returns home safely from a wilderness adventure carries with them a bit of the legacy of Robert, Susan, Jennifer, Michael, Sarah, and David Patterson. And every successful rescue enabled by technology inspired by their case fulfills the implicit promise that their sacrifice was not in vain. Their story demonstrates that even the most tragic losses can be transformed into forces for good, when love, determination, and commitment to protecting others combine to create lasting changes that save lives and honor the memory of those who were lost. The Patterson family proves that while the wilderness can be unforgiving, human ingenuity, compassion, and dedication can transform tragedy into triumph, ensuring that their final journey, though it ended in sorrow, ultimately led toward a safer world for all families who follow in their footsteps toward adventure and discovery in America's magnificent but demanding natural landscapes.